welcome everyone to another episode of the Red Suit interview, and we are joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Quinton Reviews. And congratulations on hitting 300,000 subscribers. That is incredible.
Oh, thank you. I'd almost forgotten that I'd done that. Yeah, it's pretty incredible. I was really blown away.
And I've got to say, I was really interested. It's sort of, I felt like a little bit defeated the purpose of this interview a little bit when I was watching your Q&A on the 300. But the main thing that came out of it, I can't believe you made a Mr. Mr. Potato Poghead?
Mr. Porg Potato Head.
Yeah.
This is my favorite thing. I'm very happy to be asked about this because I love Mr. Porg Potato Head.
It was simultaneously the greatest thing I've ever seen, but one of the most baffling things at the same time. It was
bafflingly great, you mean?
Yeah, of course.
It's great.
Of course. Because I saw the I saw the thumbnail. I'm like, I recognize it, but I don't know what's going to be happening there. And as soon as you explained what it was, I was truly perplexed in a absolutely incredibly amazed way. But no, it was quite interesting.
Sorry, you cut out for a bit of that. What did you say?
Oh, I just said it was very amazing, and how perplexed seeing the creative mind of Mr. Quinton Reviews on a Mr. Pork Potato Head.
Well, thank you so much.
No problem. It was honestly, it was a great thing. And I've also got another one with, I actually only just recently saw your B-movie review. And
oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know why, I just never really watched it. But then the big thing with it was, why did you buy all that B-movie merchandise?
You'll have to find out.
Uh-oh. Is this a potential Quinton Reviews video coming up with the B-movie merchandise?
Define coming up. I mean, I don't know what to say other than, like, you're gonna have to wait. I mean, I have secrets.
That's
things
true.
I don't tell people.
That's very true.
One of my secrets involves owning a lot of B-movie merchandise.
I can imagine sort of like a dungeon of Quinton Reviews, and it's sort of this sort of underground, chained up, just Mr. Barry B. Benson's on the wall, just a variety of Barry B. Benson lube and whatnot. I do not know, and I am questioning to think of what may be under there.
I like that.
But, so, also in that interview, you sort of mentioned that you had a producer, or a co-producer. So...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so are you the main creative force behind it, or do you actually have multiple people who work with you on these videos?
Well, Caleb is the person who when I started writing back when I did like the Rudolph review. Caleb was the person who we watched the movie together. He was there when I wrote the script. He read over the script. He gave me feedback. And to some extent, he still has that role in the production. We still watch a lot of the movies that we do review together. He still reviews probably about half of my scripts. The term co-producer is partially in jest. In terms of other people that work on the channel, I got to shout out Benjamin Basic. He is an animator. He does all my animations. And other than that, there's a couple of people that I shop my scripts around to, but I don't know if you would call them full-on creative members of the team.
Okay, so there's a variety of sort of, but ultimately, so you just take help and influences from other people, but you're the ultimate creative force behind it.
Yeah, you could definitely say that, I think.
Yeah. Because
my cats are fighting, so...
Because
Go on.
The videos do feel quite personal towards you, and I guess it feels like it's a very much sort of one-on-one conversation. And so it was just initially sort of when I was heard that, I was like, oh, okay, there's actually maybe a few people behind the scenes with that, because it still feels very personal with every video you do. And so, how do you credit your success on YouTube? How would you credit how you've become and where you've gotten to the now 300,000k subscribers? What would are the few things you'd say that got you to where you are?
It's so surreal to have gotten this far that it's hard for me to even. Sorry, I'm sitting there. It's so surreal to have gotten this far. It's hard for me to even credit to anything other than like a very technical, scientific view of like, I hit the algorithm when I released this video, and that gained me more subscribers, and those people stuck around.
Yeah.
What has facilitated my success? Oh, wow, that's a hard one. Because that would involve giving myself credit. I like to think it's the variety of stuff and the evolution of the content, which makes people curious about what comes next.
That's a very good point. Wow, that's actually, I've never actually heard that sort of description of just the constant question of what you can create next.
Mm-hmm.
I actually like that, because I think this also ties in potentially to, because I saw your short film Sunday that was released, and it's very different from your average content.
Oh yeah, really different, yeah.
And so,
yeah.
what ultimately can, because I really enjoyed it, it was very unique and really fun, but what ultimately made you want to create something like a short film for your channel?
Well, I used to, before I became a YouTuber, I wanted to be a filmmaker. And I don't know, I just almost felt like that if I wasn't using my channel to create something artistically satisfying now and again, that I really wasn't fulfilling it. And I feel like I have to reinvent the entire thing on occasion, or else it'll feel too much like a job. And Sunday was very much like an art project I wanted to do. And it was very much a tribute to like my high school hometown, because I went there and I caught up with a bunch of old friends and I shot cameos for that, and even a teacher. And it was very much this idea that I wanted to say something, and I wanted to say something in a way that perhaps some people it wouldn't click immediately, but then they'd think about it, they'd try and understand the film, and then maybe it'd come to them later. And I'm happy to say a lot of people have reacted that way.
Well, that's good to hear, because I was initially watching, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And then I was like, oh, there's this massive noise happening in the background. I'm like, oh, is it meant to be that? And then it ultimately relates to the ultimate purpose of the short film.
Yeah.
No, and I thought it was quite witty. It was
Yeah.
Well,
I just had this idea of people being left in that cafe with me, just with this thing droning overhead, and then they start to imagine, like, why aren't I doing anything? And then they go, what can he do? And I think a lot of people got that, which I was happy. And of course, there's the whole joke there is it's a bit of a metaphor, but it's more of just a representation of how people react to things, which I hope came across.
Yeah, no, definitely. It came across in sort of like a very sort of. It was sort of like obviously it was a little bit more hyperbolic in people's reactions, but it still felt sort of just like, oh, damn it.
Yeah, I mean that's how you have to react to everything these days. Because you see all these horrible things happening. Well, it's not how you have to react. It's just how people start to react by default. You see all these horrible things happening, and just the world on fire, if you want to say that. And you think that's terrible, that's bad, that's always there. But what can you do about it? And I guess that's what I wanted to say with Spaceship. It was just this idea where we've gotten to a point where if a spaceship just showed up, after a week, no one would care.
That's very true.
Maybe. maybe that strips away the magic of the whole thing, but that's really what I was going for.
No, that makes total sense, and I picked up on that initially. I think you probably could have even gone down the route in that way of just like someone brings it up and goes, "Can we not politicize this, please? All right, can we wait a little bit before we start?"
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. But it was originally like 4 pages of dialogue, and there were so many funny lines we wrote for these two characters to say. Like, one of the characters was gonna say like, I think you're judging this spaceship too quickly, you know. And then the final line was gonna be like, what do you want me to do, man? What do you want me to do about the spaceship? And they were all the really hilarious little bits that we could pull together. And I worked on this for a couple weeks, but I just realized that the 2 pieces of dialogue that I actually end up in the film say everything that needs to be said.
That is true.
And anything else would have just been explaining the joke.
Yeah.
For a prolonged period of time. Besides, I didn't really like filming in that diner.
How did they let you
so
film in the diner, or was it?
Oh, they do not care.
Oh, okay.
It was a very weird interaction. Because we filmed in that same diner for like a high school project, and so I was like, they'll probably let us do it. And Caleb had asked the manager beforehand, so I go in and I'm like, hey, can we film over here? And she goes, it's not mine. So basically I said, can I film with this booth? And she goes, it's not mine. And I said, what does that mean? Are you saying, like, are you clocking out? What are you saying? It's not yours to clean up? Why do you ask? Why do you say it like that? And she went, yeah. And she took away a bunch of like dirty dishes from that place. And she has hated me since then. And I don't know what I did. She just, like, that woman hates me now. And I think what she was trying to say was, when I said, can I film here? And she said, it's not mine. I think what she was trying to say was like, I'm not a corporate CEO. You know, I'm not gonna tell you where you can't film in this establishment. I think she's trying to separate herself from it.
Possibly.
But it was just huge passive aggressive energy that comes from that woman. I don't know what I did to make her hate me, but she hates me.
I guess potentially working in a diner, you sort of get the passive-aggressive attitude down pat quite quickly.
Yeah. True.
And so obviously there was a lot of high school... Do you still stay in connect with like a lot of your high school friends and high school teachers in terms of developing content or just in general for creative influences, etc.?
Are you saying, do I keep in contact with my high school friends and teachers in terms of making creative stuff? Is that what you said?
Yeah, because obviously you had an impact with this short film here.
Yeah, those guys were just really supportive in a time where they probably shouldn't have. They probably didn't need to be. And they always treated me like I was destined for something. And I want to move on up within the next year and move on to other things. So it was really important for me to go back to my roots one last time and shoot a bunch of stuff back home. I have a project coming out the first week of October, unrelated to B-Movie, but that's another big project I've been working on for a while. And that has another teacher from my high school in it, and a bunch of other friends. In fact, if you've seen Quinton Leap, an actor who was in Quinton Leap is in my first video of October, so watch out for that. But it was pretty important to my developing years and making me feel confident about making stuff. And so, and of course it's where I grew up, so I guess I just wanted to get a feel for that small town vibe into that short film. I'm particularly fond with some of those shots, just quickly representing what a community like that is like. Particularly the shot of the abandoned the abandoned Kmart. Kmart is a sort of the shopping place that closed. where I live, basically. And it's just been sitting there forever, just abandoned, but still with like the gaps, the etchings of the letters. The sign's been taken down, but that part of the front of the story is much lighter than the rest of it, so you can still read it. I think it's kind of eerie, but I think you'd have to look at the shot closely to get it.
No, that is quite eerie. That is quite. It was. I was like, is that a real building that's just completely abandoned? But.
Oh yeah, it's totally abandoned.
And you, like, in the same the 300,000 subscriber video, the Q&A, you talked about obviously the people wanting you to do collaborations with such people like ContraPoints and etc. So, how did you initially get into sort of the point of where you were contacting them and sort of trying to initially get these collaborations going? Like, how did that all initially come about?
All right, sorry, you dropped out for a second. Did you basically ask me like how does asking for collaborations work?
Well, sort of more than just, like, how did you yourself get into the situation of where you were able to collaborate or potentially collaborate with some of these YouTubers?
Yeah, you think it'd be exciting, but it's kind of not. It's basically like when people find my content, they follow, they subscribe. Then when they find my Twitter, they follow me. So basically, I have a lot of content creators who I've gotten in contact with because we mutually watch each other's stuff and we follow each other. And I, on occasion, will reach out to people like that and ask them if they want to do cameos or brief roles. The collaborations, I think, are ridiculous and take too much time and aren't worth the paper they're printed on. But I like doing stuff like the Rage Comics video or the Garfield video, having other YouTubers voice the characters.
Yeah.
And basically that all came about just because I made enough content that the people were willing to appear on my channel in very brief roles. And I try and make it, the first goal is to make it convenient for the other person. Because they really don't have to do that, and I'm always grateful.
No, it's very interesting whenever you see like those little cameo things, especially in videos where people have voiceovers and whatnot, and you'll be watching it, and then you hear this voice, and you go, "What is that? Is that so and so? Is that so and so doing this? How did that happen?"
Oh yeah, I totally get you.
It's quite interesting, especially especially with your Rage Comics video. We're like, was Chris Raygun one in your Rage Comics one, or was I thinking about something else?
You're thinking of it was the Simpsons video. I'm sorry, I got it mixed up. I did a follow-up on my Simpsons video. It was called like Debunking Predictive Programming.
Yep.
And Chris was the one I got to read like the crazy conspiracy theory comments.
Yep. And especially because you've like both of those YouTubers. So when I mentioned, so ContraPoints and Chris Raygun, obviously they do politically driven content, and you have touched on different political sort of, not necessarily issues, but looked at sort of the political side of YouTube. Do you feel are you put off from making political content on YouTube, or do you want to make some more in the future? Or
that's a good question. I like making political content. I enjoy talking about politics. It does drive people off. It's very easy to quickly offend someone or make someone distrust you. Of course, I'm never afraid to go into the arena of politics in the way that, like, I constantly poke fun at, like, incels. I've made Trump jokes before that I'm kind of proud of. But at multiple points I've almost done, like, political videos about, like, the 2016 election. But one of the reasons I back away from politics is that I evolved so much. I'm in my early 20s, and I'm going to be a different person in 7 years. And it's really annoying that, like, people still walk up to me and quote to me political statements I might have made 2 years ago,
No, that makes sense, yeah.
That doesn't really represent me anymore, so that's what's really burnt me off from talking about politics. It's funny, I I was reading the description of a podcast I was on. I was reading the comments on the Pizza Party podcast episode I was on, and there was like a lot of people who hate me, and those people ranged from saying that I was a social justice warrior to saying that I was one of the whiny anti-social justice warriors. So it's really about who you ask. Either way, I'm whiny.
I guess that's sort of that's so bizarre because obviously, like I've seen a fair amount of your content now as preparation, especially with this interview. But the political content, I don't see it as whiny or preachy or anything like that. It just comes from very opinionated. But it's sort of bizarre, especially because you sort of you've made friends and connections or YouTube connections with people on multiple sides of the YouTube political style.
Yeah, I mean, I've really stuck with this is going to be controversial, but I mean, I feel a lot more comfortable with the liberal side, to be honest. When I meet those guys, I'm like, I just feel like it's a lot easier to be comfortable around them. So that'd probably be where I would end up, in terms if like we all were friends in the same city in the real world, I'd probably hang out with those guys more. I've become slightly infamous for my political posts on Twitter. So like when Boogie went on the H3 podcast, he said a bunch of stupid stuff.
Yeah.
And I did like a Twitter rant about how it was a bunch of stupid stuff. And now people screenshot that out of context and like mention it to me in threads. Like, yeah, but you said that fence sitters caused the end of Reconstruction and the start of Jim Crow. And I'm like, yeah, I did. Why are you bringing this up to me randomly? You know?
Yeah. No. And when
that's where I get your reputation.
And when you say liberal, are you talking about obviously the liberal side? Are you talking about the enlightened, skeptical liberals, or are we talking liberals?
Enlightened, skeptical liberals.
So, of course, when we talk about enlightened, skeptical liberals, we're talking about, like, the Sargon of Akkad's and...
No, I'm not one of those guys.
No.
I'm not what is Jordan Peterson is one of those, right?
Yeah.
No.
Fighting
No,
the
thank
dragon.
you.
Yeah.
I'm pretty classical, regular definition of the word liberal, which is the opposite of classical liberalism, which is confusing.
It is. It's very confusing. It's very bizarre.
I'm just left-leaning. I mean, that's the basics of it. I supported Obama. I voted for Hillary with a grudge. I said, you've done a terrible job and you're probably going to lose this because you're terrible, but you're better than the other guy, you know?
That's true.
And I don't feel ashamed of that. I feel annoyed that the party is embarrassing, but I'm not ashamed of my political beliefs.
No, that's true. That's very true. It sort of is very bizarre, especially on YouTube when you look at political content, because you have a lot of people, especially who claim to be on the left, that constantly attack the left, but then there's this sort of free reign, especially on right-leaning political YouTubers, that there's not much sort of like even ground, and it's like obviously both sides need it or should deserve a platform, but it's sort of bizarre in how sided the YouTube political content has become.
That's an interesting point. I mean, I think it's that, I'll tell you what it is. People come on to YouTube as moderate in terms of their politics.
Yep.
But their audiences encourage them to be more radical. And so they just search out the ends of their respective political spectrums. And I think that's how you get people being very outright spoken about their liberal beliefs. That's how you get people being slowly indoctrinated into this alt-right. I think that's how you get people like John Tron quoting white supremacist mantras on podcasts, which is uncomfortable, I know, but I've lost a lot of respect for that man. It's just that there's not a lot of nuance on YouTube. And I think that's changing. I think there's starting to be new content. I think ContraPoints is more nuanced than people give her credit for. I think I really like her stuff in that regard.
No, her stuff is very...
what would a middle of the road YouTube channel be? You know?
It seems very hard to see that because it's very hard, I guess, to point that one out.
Everything is so radical. Everything is so radical at this stage in terms of politics that I can't imagine. It is hard for me to imagine someone being like Jordan Peterson, that guy's good, you know? And like someone else on the left, equally as radical in the other perspective, they're cool too, you know?
Yeah.
Everyone has, I mean, you know, Jordan Peterson has spoken about forced monogamy and how that, I think, if I remember correctly, he said forced monogamy would stop school shooters or something. That if we force women to be monogamous win a relationship with one man, then school shooters won't happen or something. Like ridiculous shit.
Well, the interesting point, especially with that one there, is that I think one of the biggest issues, especially with, I think, the trouble, or I don't know if it's the trouble, but I think it's towards the benefit of especially center-right to right-leaning YouTubers, is that they don't necessarily clearly state positions. So it's when a position is stated of theirs or taken slightly out of context, they can immediately refute it. So especially with the Jordan Peterson one, with what he said there, with the forced monogamy, in the ultimate grand scheme of things, he was talking about like a cultural thing of we should culturally force monogamy rather than a political thing. However, when it's put slightly out of context, it's sort of this...
I see.
More, it seems like he's talking an authoritative stance. And so a lot of people who are undecided will see that and go, well, if these people are saying horrible things about this man, maybe there's a reason to follow him. If it's not correct.
I see.
And I don't know if it's to the benefit.
But yeah, that's my political stance.
No, it's very and like you said about ContraPoints especially, it's sort of it's very interesting to see like a very creative and interesting YouTuber who can do that sort of thing, especially when it seems like the political side of YouTube is very much against that sort of style and belief.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the niche markets. There's a certain market of audience on YouTube that has convinced themselves that they're the only market that exists. So they get upset when other markets get acknowledged and get supported. So they're like, who watches makeup channels? I watch Drama Alert and iDubbbz every day. Nothing else exists. Yeah, you know? So it probably seems like there isn't a market for someone like ContraPoints, but there really is.
That's very true.
That's also... That's what happens with VidCon every year. People are like, why did this 10 million subscriber, channel that I've never even heard of get invited? They're not important. People just have trouble acknowledging things that they don't have in their vision, basically.
No, that's very true. No, it's quite bizarre, especially when you see sort of this channel that's got like 10 to 12 million views and you have absolutely never ever heard of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's the beauty of YouTube. I don't think.
Oh, it's amazing.
I think yeah, I agree. I met someone at VidCon at like a party, and he said he had 10 million subscribers. And I was like, I don't know who you are, and I think that's good. Because if I knew who you were, it would be because you had done something stupid.
No, I think that's a very valid point. It's the beauty of YouTube, of where even when you think you have a knowledge on what's popular and what's great on YouTube, something else just completely pops up and flips everything around.
Yeah.
And speaking of
go on.
Speaking of fame, I guess, or the people who have become famous like yourself, how have you felt with dealing with your relatively new fame?
I mainly don't think about it. Uh, every time someone says every time someone calls me famous, they're saying it with slightly less of an inflection of irony, and that's bothering. That's worrying me. The first time people said that, they were joking. Slowly over time, they stopped joking. What does that mean? It doesn't come up a lot. I mean, I haven't run into someone who's recognized me in like 2 months. It's I've mainly just been trying to keep my head clear so I can keep working, and hoping that I can keep up this passion and this growth so I can eventually accomplish some of my dreams. Because the most stressful part about hitting quote the top is them being like, and now do I fall back to the bottom, or do I stay around the top, or do I like fall to the middle, you know? And so it's almost like if you spend too much time thinking about that kind of stuff, it just gets to your head. Not in an ego way, but just like in a stress way. So I mainly have just been trying to chill out and naturally work at stuff.
And you mentioned before sort of some of your dreams, or you mentioned that you have more dreams and ambitions. Do you mind sort of talking, or are they top secret and because it's future projects, or sort of you're willing to sort of open up about sort of the things you want to do in the future?
That's an interesting question. I mean, like most YouTubers, I would like to become the thespian, the actor, the LA hit, those who overcame their YouTube status. Like a lot of people, I would like that. But in general, I like the idea of trying to work on projects for the channel, which are potentially a little more ambitious, but in the same like tone. I wanted to make sort of a documentary style thing where I actually interviewed people, and that would be a Fallen Titans episode. We were going to make like a mockumentary 1 week that was going to be a sequel to the project we're releasing in October. And the idea is to keep that stuff in mind, to slowly work on it, to plan it, to look forward to it, but also to stay enough in the now that you can work on what's currently on your plate. And that's what I've been trying to do.
No, that's a very good point. And so I'm going to try and connect the dots here. So you're talking about a mockumentary of a project that you're trying to complete. Would that happen to chance of a mockumentary of how you sourced all the B-movie gear?
No. That's not quite it. You haven't pieced it together yet.
Damn. All right.
You'll have to wait and see.
I don't know. Maybe I think in about the next 48 hours, I might have some Pepe Sylvia red line going across my room.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this needs to be, because if there's a Barry B. Benson in that dungeon, someone's got to know. Someone's got to save him.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll let you piece that all together.
And so, when you're planning and your projects, how often do you scrap ideas often, or do you try and commit to certain ideas? Do you try and buckle down, or if it just doesn't feel right, you sort of just move on from it? You there?
I usually try and stick to my guns in terms of projects. Sometimes, on occasion, I'm way over my head and I just have to put it away. Sometimes for a short period of time, sometimes indefinitely. But I don't think scrapping my videos is that common. It's somewhat common for me to put off videos because I have deadlines and I'm like, I can't finish this video in time, so I got to switch to something else. But I wouldn't say that I cancel videos all the time. It's just that I don't have time for some videos, basically.
Well, that's interesting. Because, it's sort of interesting sort of talking to, different people when they create videos. Like, for example, myself, whenever I create content, it's either, if I believe in it fully, I will immediately work on it and I'll immediately do it. But if I film something and it's just slightly off, I will put it off till months, potentially, sometimes even years, till I ever come back to it. It's either it has to be perfect, or I just can't get around to doing it.
Yeah, that's totally a struggle. There's no point in doing anything other than the whole ass. Because you can't half-ass it.
Hmm.
The whole ass. You got a whole ass it.
Whole ass it. That's no. I think I'm gonna have that thought going through my mind next time I'm working on something. I'll have Quinton in the back of my head saying, "Whole ass it, come on, you gotta whole ass it."
The whole.
The entire two butt cheeks in the whole ass it.
No, it's clever.
Yeah. And so, what do you think has... Actually, I'll start with something else. So, has there been a video that you've created that you have regretted creating or uploaded, or you wish you did in a different way?
Videos that I wish I'd done in a different way, or I hadn't done. Basically anything that shows too much of my personal life or personal viewpoints that I'm no longer aligned with. So like I said, I occasionally would make a political video or a political joke that that's no longer me. I no longer I'd rather people not use my words in that instance to support that belief, that sort of thing.
That makes sense. And so, I guess this may be connected, or may not. So, what do you think has been sort of... Because you've delved into many different communities with YouTube, and especially since you have a vast variety of content that you look at with your Quinton Reviews channel. What do you think has been the most open community, and what do you think has been the most toxic community that has come after you or your video?
The most open and the most what?
Toxic.
Toxic? Most open and most toxic. I think those two go hand in hand in a way.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's not true. Okay, so some communities I've found are really kind and supportive and cool. I've really enjoyed... I don't know how this happened, but I'm somehow in line with the animation storytime community now.
Yep.
I talk with a lot of those guys, a lot. And it's very common, if I need a cameo, I go straight to those guys. And honestly, I really enjoy those guys. The thing is, the best people you want to know on YouTube are the ones that are smart enough to get real lives. The ones who are now that I can support myself, I'm not gonna, I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna have days where I do stuff, I'm gonna enjoy the world. And so those are the ones that, you can't just call on Discord. Oh, no offense.
Yeah.
The most toxic ones.
And sorry, let me clarify with community. I'm not necessarily just talking about sort of YouTube creators. I'm talking about sort of whether it's I don't know if it's going to be this, but example, like a Rick and Morty fan base or something like that. So it's not necessarily just creators, but just fan bases and things that you've stumbled across that have...
Yeah, so I'm thinking in terms of community. I've definitely been on creator communities. I've been in a lot of those. And I don't know, when commentary was a thing, I didn't really enjoy a lot of the commentary stuff just because it was so ridiculous and intertwined and petty in a way. It was very much like, this week we hate this YouTuber. You have to hate this YouTuber too. And you have to keep up to date with what any of us has said about this YouTuber. and then, anytime this YouTuber does anything, we're all going to do streams about it. We're all going to talk about it because we hate this person. And I'm not talking about the Jake Pauls, by the way. I'm not saying Jake Paul does something. I mean I was in a community where I was expected to keep up with what Quite was doing. And I was like, I don't know who Quite is. And they were like, we all hate him. And I was like, I don't know And I watched his videos, and I was like, why do you hate him? And they were like, he's a hack. And I was like, this is a bad community. You know? It's hard to explain. But it was just like, I almost felt like it was too negative all the time. There was just people, what had happened was, iDubbbz made the Leafy video, right? And he got huge off of exposing this one guy for being, you know, a hypocrite. And now there was this huge community of people that were like, we can all do that.
Yeah.
And basically it's gotten to the point where nothing has happened. There aren't any really two bad people like that anymore. And so they just randomly choose people they don't like. And then they're like, we gotta organize something. We gotta take that person down. And I just don't care. And so that was like the worst community I've ever been a part of, just because it was just really ridiculous, stupid stuff. And I was in this one group chat where they kept posting porn to the group chat.
Oh, okay.
And I would leave the group chat when they did this, and they'd put me back in, and I didn't know how to deal with this.
Is that technically sexual harassment?
I don't know. It's technically people I don't want to talk to.
No,
that's all I got to input there.
That's
I'm
okay.
probably gonna get in trouble for saying half this shit, but that's that's the gist of it.
Well, the thing is that you probably say this because I'm not very big.
Yeah.
You'll have some people in Brisbane go, oh yeah, that Quinton Reviews guy, nah, he seems pretty sweet. Yeah, nah, actually, yeah, nah. That's possibly to the extent of where this will go.
Okay.
However, if this does hit 1 million views and this does go viral, I am not liable. Okay.
I think you'll find in the contract that is not the case.
Yeah, no, actually, oh crap. Let me retract that. I'll have my lawyers send you a new one.
Every subscriber you lose. Every subscriber I lose. You also lose. Whatever.
Yeah, I have to pay you $1,000 for every subscriber you lose.
Every subscriber I lose. That's a good system. All right, everyone, unsubscribe from my channel.
Yeah. No. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I think that's a very fair statement. That's very interesting. It's sort of, especially when you brought up the community, the reaction community. It very much felt sort of like a Don Quixote, sort of just like they always felt like they had to do like a quest on nothing, and it seems like, because I would watch it and it would just be like them attacking someone, and then like a week later, just nothing. It just sort of just passed. And
yeah, absolutely.
And it made me question. There was multiple things of where I questioned this community. I'm like, well, are they just trying to do this to get views? Are they too stupid to get or to pay attention on these people, or are they just very forgiving for these people? And it's very interesting to see this community, especially when they upload videos.
Yeah.
And so,
I'm sorry, did you ask me a question?
Oh, did you not hear it?
Oh, I didn't hear a question.
No, I was just basically just saying that the community sort of is just, it's just a very bizarre in terms of that it just sort of moves on. And
yeah.
So, where do you think the future of YouTube? Because obviously you're a YouTube specialist with a PhD in memes. Where do you think the
worst PhD, by the way? The dentist's office I applied to was not impressed.
Oh, wasn't it? Oh, wow. I thought.
What do I think of what?
Oh, the future of YouTube. What do you think the future of YouTube is going?
I think it's going to. YouTube is the future of entertainment in some fashion, because most people under like 25 potentially watch more YouTube than they do TV. It's certainly like if you pick like a random teenager, I think it's much more likely they're watching Philip DeFranco than they are CBS Sunday Morning.
That's very true.
So it's extremely influential in that, right? And the only reason that it hasn't been seen as that yet is that the old media is very much built off of an older generation that doesn't understand new media. And I think there's going to be a huge wave where eventually people start to treat YouTube very seriously. And this idea of personality-driven content that works on a standalone basis, where a television show would need 1,000 or so, more people than that even, to run properly. Suddenly like a guy with a game controller and a bad light and a camera can make just as much money as those guys. It's going to be a huge talking point in the future. I won't be surprised if there's if stuff that's happening right now is insignificant, will be someone will study that in the future, Someone will say this is, YouTube evolved in this way. Because it's called new media for a reason, I think. And I think some of it's going to have a very long-term standing.
No, that's very.
That's my.
And when you brought up the fact of, it's quite a funny thing, especially from my perspective, is when you said most people from under the age of 25 are watching more YouTube, like Phil DeFranco, than news itself. It's quite interesting because, for example, myself, I work within the TV industry and the TV news especially, and I certainly watch more YouTube than I will ever watch television.
Yeah.
And
the question of how media is going to adapt to this change, it hasn't quite hit yet, but I think it will hit probably in the next 10 to 20 years. Because eventually I think there's going to be somewhat of a shift between the people who make, the mainstream stream TV broadcast, as their audience, to be morbid, potentially starts to die off. They're going to start to say, now where's the replacement? And the replacement is watching YouTube videos. And they're going to say, how do we take over that? And I think you've already seen that with channels like SNL. People like SNL already move a lot of their market to YouTube. And I guess they probably make a good amount of money off of doing that, off posting their own skits on YouTube. Because those get several million views. And of course, you've got the talk shows taking over YouTube. Jimmy Kimmel.
That's true.
Whenever YouTube bred, the talk show hosts are a main facet, more in focus than potentially some of the biggest YouTube channels. And I think as the shift in how seriously those YouTube is taken, that'll probably change. I mean, I can tell you, sponsored ads already pay a stupid amount of money. And I just think that as brands start to realize that a lot of it is their startup brands spend their money around on YouTube,
Yeah.
Coca-Cola puts their ads on a Sunday morning talk show, and something like Dollar Shave Club puts their ads on a YouTube video. So it's a different market of people. But I think it's a smart business model for the smaller guys, and the bigger guys, well, it'd be kind of weird to imagine a YouTuber being like, this video is sponsored by Pepsi Cola.
Yeah.
Go on.
Well, I was just agreeing with what you were saying.
I can't remember what I was going to say, so just go on.
Yeah. Well, so where do you think the future of now, more specifically, sort of the content of YouTube is heading? Do you think that, because we've already seen sort of especially with monetization and different algorithmic changes, it's sort of YouTube itself is probably pushing to sort of a more normative audience. Do you think this is going to be a continual incline, or do you think potentially that there may be a break from this? Or
I think that it's very probable that we might see more less edgy channels come into fruition. I know a lot of people are scared of that. As a YouTuber who makes his living because his content is seen as somewhat family friendly, it's hard for me to get too stressed out about the idea that little kids aren't being recommended really edgy videos anymore. Because that's what you have to remember, is a lot of YouTube is children. And I think this demonetization thing has been YouTube maybe trying to take responsibility in some sense. I think we're definitely going to see a bigger trend of YouTubers who can make salient content without it being very explicit. Though I don't think it will affect like people using curse words. But I definitely think there's going to be a push for more normative content, which makes sense because they want to push for a mainstream audience. And again, like I said, they want to be recommending videos to children that children can watch. And that's yeah.
I know. I like, especially with sort of explicit language on YouTube. In the last couple of years, it's sort of, I've just been quite surprised and to see, but in a sort of interesting way. It's sort of, I would say, like, if you look at, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, you had some of the most explicit YouTubers would be something like, I don't know, Filthy Frank, or even now, like some of the bigger ones was like Leafy. He would, every second word was a swear, but that was just his thing, but he made tons of money off it. But now, whenever I see sort of content now, some big YouTubers out there just it always monitoring explicit language. So if you even look at like Sorrow TV, who does the Reddit, reading through Reddit posts and whatnot, or Internet Historian, of where they do look at really controversial and sort of edgy content. However, it's done in a very clean way, and it's very interesting of how this dynamic has changed.
I think the algorithm is stupid. I'll give you that much. I think the algorithm doesn't know, if the algorithm hears the word terrorist, it thinks this is a video promoting terrorists.
Yep.
And meanwhile, a video actually promoting terrorists gets away with it because it doesn't use the word terrorist.
It uses,
I think the system is new and in its baby steps. And hopefully that will become more understandable. Another problem is that YouTube has a system for content creators to get away with that, but they can't tell people the system because horrible people exist that will misuse the system.
Yep.
There's certain tags you can use if you make a video about, something personal that you want to share with people. There are tags you can use to get around this, but they can't tell people the tags because then trolls are going to be using the tags. It's really, I feel bad for them partially because there's not much they can do about it.
No, that's very true.
But I guess in terms of the trend, we're probably I can imagine us potentially moving away from more commentary-driven stuff in the coming years to potentially more, free-flowing. I could definitely see vlogs surviving and becoming bigger. It's just my guess that specifically commentary on potentially internet culture isn't going to be as big as it was like 2 years ago.
No,
that's just my guess.
That's very true because it's just very interesting seeing some of like the growth in different YouTubers. Like obviously, like you have the Logan Pauls and Jake Pauls who are now the sort of largest growing ones, but compare them to, I don't know, maybe like 5 years ago, just in terms of like how the content has completely changed and it's sort of a lot more child friendly. Because even though like Filthy Frank was biggest, even though I wouldn't know if he was the fastest growing, he was very sort of, I guess, cult classic, I guess.
Well, but I know the Storytime animators are currently doing like better than anyone else.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you look at like Jay, the odd ones out,
Yeah, yeah.
he has like 7 million subscribers, and all the other ones are going up really quickly.
I guess yeah,
Um,
Dominic's and whatnot. And,
I keep I keep finding channels that I've never heard of that like literally hit 1 million subscribers when I find them, you know.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I get that.
and and you have to do that really quickly for people not to notice.
Hmm.
Uh, and that's the sort of content I'm talking about. Where like I think it's going to be more personality driven and less about whatever you're discussing. That's just my guess. I think that's more in line with where the site is headed. And of course now I think a lot of people are starting to hate those guys because they just resent the fact that that's what's popular now.
That's true.
But I think they're great.
And so, when you say now personality driven, do you think it'll be much harder, especially for newer creators in terms
Much harder
of
to what?
much harder, since you said it was personality driven, do you think it's going to be much harder for newer creators to actually be able to get a grasp on YouTube?
No, I think it'll probably be just as easy as it is today. It's just that different content will reach the top. It's the same as the story of anything they talk about on like Fallen Titans. It depends on the algorithm. It's not that channels aren't rising up; it's that different channels are rising up. So it seems like channels aren't rising up.
Yeah, no.
I mean, these same channels that are hitting 1 million subscribers were a couple of years ago, where it started off at 0.
Yeah.
It just really depends on what kind of content you're making, basically.
No, that's very true. That's very true. I think, yeah, it would probably, yeah, there's a lot of channels out there. Like, even something like H3H3, their success and how quickly they grew from was very, very quickly and very suddenly, I guess, to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
and changing subject a little bit. So how do you deal with criticism and sort of the mean people or the critics of YouTube?
No, I watched a podcast that Art, the game from Mars, and the Odd Ones Out did. Odd Ones Out had a really good system for this. Whenever he gets a hate comment, he reads it out as this YouTuber says da 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 da. So like, anime lover 226 says, and then the really mean comment,
Yep.
and just it takes away all its weight. In general, you have to think about the criticism and understand it from their point of view. And sometimes their points are legitimate, and sometimes they're really dumb, and you should just ignore them. I don't know how you say, how do I deal with it? I don't know if I would call it dealing with it. I don't know what I mean, but it's like it's just there. I let it be there, and then I go on with my life. I don't really deal with it.
Okay. Okay. Because you hear a lot of like YouTube creators, especially, that'll be like, the YouTube, like, obviously YouTube comments can be brutal, but you hear constantly from YouTube creators about sort of like going through and reading the comments, and like, for example, Boogie, like every second Boogie video is talking about the community and what the community likes. And it's very interesting to hear sort of you saying like, oh, I just don't deal with it. You just move on from it.
I mean, it's sort of like that. I mean, it's like it can be really stressful, and it can bother you and really bum you out. And there's been points where it's been really bad. And I'm certainly not trying to demean the existence of the horrible negative emotions that can come from
definitely,
hate comments. But I don't know. Once you hit a certain size, you realize, now that I'm this size, someone hates me. No matter what I do, someone hates me. And so you just kind of go like, yeah, there's some hate. There it goes. And then you go do something else. And it's sort of like when people ask me like I talk about YouTube and I talk about how much work it takes and how I keep working, can't really take breaks because I have to release like 3 or 4 videos a month, and it's just like it people say stuff like maybe you should I mean, it's bad that you feel that way, that you see it as work, maybe you should take a break so you can stop viewing it as work. And I'm like, there's no way to stop viewing it as work. It's just what it's become, and there's no dealing with it. It just, that's the way it is, and I have to keep going because there's nothing I can do about that element of my life,
No, that's very poignant, very true. I guess especially from listening from a larger creator's perspective, it makes sense. And I think one last question before we end it up, and I think the most serious question of today, and it will be, what's your favorite Power Ranger and why?
Andros is badass.
Yeah.
Andros is so badass.
See,
he's just cool.
Well, I didn't hear the White Power Ranger, so I'm assuming you meant White Power Ranger when you said that?
I mean, I could see where you'd think that, but Andros is badass. And he's got like a tragic backstory. His sister got kidnapped. That shit's cool. And then there's like a twist with that I won't even spoil. But, I mean, White Power Ranger, Tommy's up there. Tommy's certainly like top 2.
Ultimate redemption story, my man. Ultimate redemption story.
Ultimate redemption story, indeed. Clearly one of the most highly regarded Power Rangers. But I really like Andros. Andros is cool.
Okay. All right. Okay. Nah, I can't accept anything but Tommy White.
Okay.
To be honest, I was expecting when the tiki torches were going, I was expecting at least one guy going around wearing a White Power Ranger costume. Yelling out White Power Ranger, White Power Ranger. I was really hoping for that.
Oh, I see.
I was honestly hoping for that, because that would have truly taken the legs out of that.
I see.
But
sticking with Andros, man.
Andros, make me vomit. But
he's a good character. It's a good season of the show.
Well, a good season of the show is a very arbitrary statement to make. Because,
what does that mean?
Well, is there truly a good season of Power Rangers?
Yeah, I mean, In Space has its iffy moments. It's kind of like the canon, like what? Oh, they're in a school this episode, But it's like, I know that the next one, Lost Galaxy, is supposed to be really, really good. I haven't really watched that all the way through. And there's a good point in that era of the show where it just somehow gets just far enough away from being hokey,
Yeah.
to be unironically enjoyable.
That's very true.
But no, you're totally right. It's hard to be like, to get your friends around and be like, we're gonna watch this children's television program, and you're gonna be embarrassed for me.
That's true. See, my personal favorite moment from Power Rangers was, did you ever see the 1990 something Power Ranger movie?
Not canon, my friend. Not canon at all.
Is that not canon? Yeah.
Oh no, it's not canon.
But Ivan Ooze.
I think it's a retelling of a certain number of episodes from the show.
Really? Oh, I didn't realize that. Well, I feel kind of cut.
Yeah.
I guess it's because they replaced two of the actors in it, because the Asian actor...
Oh no, well they'd already been replaced in the show. So they made that show alongside they made that movie alongside one of the seasons of the show.
Yeah.
And there's actually an episode of the show called, I think, something green, and it's an episode where Rita makes an evil clone of Tommy, and there's like a fight between the White and Green Ranger, who are both Tommy, and people really loved that episode, and it was only made because they needed an extra episode while they were making the movie, and that was what they could come up with because they only needed one guy.
That's good. That's great. But
people.
Well,
the
best
the movie.
The best Power Rangers moment I think I've ever seen was in that movie, because this is the 1990s movies where you can't have your weapons use violence and whatnot, where they get all the Ivanhoe's goons together, they battle him underneath a shipping container. Tommy pulls out his sword, the saber or whatever it is. He throws the sword rounds up all the enemies, then the sword flies up to a container that's hanging above them with a chain, and instead of cutting the chain with the blade, the sword then flips around with red light with the tiger face, and then shoots the laser, which then cuts the chain that drops the container and killing all the bad guys.
Wow. That's certainly a way to get around just stabbing someone.
Yep.
You see, my favorite moment from that movie is where they make the Megazord and it's very CGI and it doesn't look good.
No, it just makes me sad. Because, it's so disgusting. Oh.
And they fight Ivan Ooze. They fight the giant Ivan Ooze. And then they like kick him in the crotch.
Yeah. He blows up.
So sad. There was this great Instagram account. There was this Instagram account that posted fan art of all the helmets from that movie.
Yeah.
It was the helmets of all the Power Rangers, but redone with their new powers. And up until I saw this fan art, I'd never realized that when they get their new powers,
that doesn't change the suit.
Yeah, it's still like my power's not Tyrannosaurus Rex anymore, but I still have a Tyrannosaurus Rex helmet. Yep. You know?
It was so great.
Really weird. The suits in that movie, I know that they didn't want to go with spandex, but they all look like action figures.
Oh yeah, they do. But they did spend money to get a second Red Ranger helmet, which was basically a was it Knight Rider kit sensor mode instead of just...
Oh yeah.
That was so stupid. But anyway, I think that's enough Power Ranger talk for one man can handle.
So, in conclusion, Andros.
Those are some fighting words. But
thanks for having me on.
Thank you very much for joining me today.
Had fun.
It was very fun talking to you about the different sides of YouTube and where things are going and whatnot. So thank you very much for coming. And where can people find you, Quinton, if they've absolutely never heard of you?
All right. So sometimes I go to this place called Kroger and I buy like grapes. That's where you can find me. But don't come and find me. Instead, find my YouTube channel. Go to YouTube, go to www.youtube.com/Quinton Reviews Kitchen Sink. That's QUINTON Reviews Kitchen Sink. And you can subscribe to me there, or you can find my Twitter account, which is twitter.com/Q_review. I think that's what it is. And it's been fun being on here. Thanks for having me on. A lot of blast. Certainly something.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for joining. And we'll be seeing you guys next time.